My name is Mookie Harris. I had oropharyngeal cancer, which I had never heard of before actually getting it. It's basically just neck cancer, but it starts in your tonsils. I remember standing in my kitchen and it hit me hard, but at the same time, because I knew it was already an option, it wasn't like out of the blue surprise. It was, it was just, oh, so it's definitely that possibility. Now that, and I remember talking like, so could it be this or this or this? And they're like, no, it's this. Um, and all of my close friends and my girlfriend were all out of town. My parents live in North Carolina. My brother, who lives here in town, was out of town. I had nobody really close to talk to. So I packed up my stuff and I went out to Turkey Run and camped out overnight and just sat in the woods, and I kind of made my peace with it. The problem is cancer isn't a genetic thing in my family. I haven't had to deal with anybody having cancer since like 1982. And cancer in 1982 was a whole different thing. And so when they told me that I had cancer, I was like, okay, so I'm going to die right away. And I just made my peace with that, which was a complete overreaction. They're like, no, we're going to do some treatment to you and you'll be fine in a year. And it turned out to be less than a year. So yeah, I went through a big, huge dealing with it that I probably didn't need to. But if anything, it's better to overreact than underreact in a short time like that. Yeah, so about this time last year, I noticed that I had I thought I had a swollen lymph node over here. And, it was just there. And I'm a guy, so I just kind of let it sit for a while. And I was like, oh, I've got a cold or something, and it'll go away. But it kept getting bigger, and on toward April, I finally said, I need to get this checked out. By the time we went through a bunch of tests and all, and by June, when it was diagnosed as a cancer, it was fairly large, and I had a big swollen lump on the side of my neck. I also had a bigger beard at the time, so nobody could see it. But so most people were surprised to hear that I had a big lump hanging off my neck. From that point, June 4th, until November, say 18th, when I was given the all clear that I'm cancer free, seemed like the longest point of my life. But looking back now, it was such a tiny little time. Like, it wasn't even a year. It was just this blip that, like, oh yeah, for part of this year I had cancer.
Yeah.
Which is a very weird thing. I guess just the part of me that is really realistic. Like, nobody gets a flu, let's say, or a cold and goes, why me? Why did I, of all people, get this cold? We just go, oh, I've got a cold. And we deal with it. We take some medicine, we take care of ourselves, and we get through it. Cancer and other things in between, people tend to get really like, is this some God punishing me? Or is this, did I do something wrong? Why me? And all that. And I think that's it can be a real waste of time sometimes, when you could be focusing on what could I be doing to just make myself better. I tried to just keep myself healthy. I had a lot going for me. Like, when I went into it, my doctors told me, like, for all intents and purposes, aside from this isolated cancer, you're a healthy guy. So we're going to be really aggressive with this treatment. We're going to bombard you with stuff in a way that we wouldn't do to, like, an 80-year-old. And so they beat me up for a very short time. And in the meantime, I tried to, like, stay on my bike every day and eat healthy and stuff like that, just to fight against it in just a normal kind of way. I didn't do anything like super crazy. I didn't go in for a lot of like experimental or what do I want to say, like well, I've heard that if you eat nothing but kale for...
Those miracle
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah. Nothing like that. I just tried to keep the rest of me the same, and have the rest of my body there to fight against this thing that they were trying to fight from outside. I have a ton of great friends, and that's something that, like, in the age of social media, we all kind of take for granted. We can see how many friends we have. There's a little count that says that, but you don't think about, like, you have a ton of friends, and you have people that the moment they hear something like that you have cancer, that you're going to be dealing with all that, they come out of the woodwork. Just let me know what I can do for you. And at the time, I had no idea what they could do for me. I didn't know what I was in for. People are going, if you need a ride to treatment, I'm there for you. And as it turned out, I never needed that. Like, I was able to drive myself to everything and get myself around. And life in general didn't change a lot. It was all like, the stuff that did change was stuff that nobody could really help with that much. Like, it was really hard for me to swallow for the better part of a month. But it's not like, I was going to call my friends and say, hey, come over and baby bird food to me, because I can't swallow tough food. It's hard for me to eat a Triscuit. But yeah, like, people just, in general, they were just so supportive. And I kind of, one thing I did, how, like, you see people, maybe they're running a marathon for somebody to support breast cancer or something like that, but they've all got the matching t-shirts. And frankly, a lot of times those t-shirts are ugly. I mean, they're for a good cause, but they're ugly. And I was like, nobody's going to make ugly Team Mookie shirts for me. So I kind of, just because it was one thing I could control, right away I contacted a buddy of mine, and I had this idea for, like, what if we had, like, a picture of me on the Hulk's body, and it said, like, Mook Smash, because that's what I intend to do to this cancer. And 2.5 hours later, from England, he sends me back a vector drawing of exactly what I wanted. And so I had a bunch of t-shirts made, instantly set up this fundraising site, and raised a lot of money to help cover the expenses that my insurance didn't. And while I was lucky enough to have great insurance that covered a lot of things, there's all kinds of stuff you don't think about that doesn't get covered. And so my friends were a huge support in that way too, just buying t-shirts, which I never would have thought of as being, like, a big thing before, but it meant so much during that whole process. Yeah, when I first found out that I had cancer, I remember one of my friends asking me, like, do you think this whole thing is going to change you? I was like, I don't know, but I'm kind of excited about it. Like, I think I'm the only person I know who, just from a scientist kind of viewpoint, I like to dissect everything. I like to look at, like, the experience of everything. When I found out that I had cancer, I was super introspective about every part of it. And you kind of become an expert on it. So, like, the moment you get something, you go researching it on the internet, not in the bad way. You don't want to go down that Dr. Internet hole where... And cancer is so different for everybody, so if you got the exact same thing I got, your experience would be very different. Your body would affect it differently, and cancer is your own cells working against you, so your cells are different than mine to start with. So I tried not to put too much emphasis on what other people had gone through, but use it as a guide. And then for my own aspect, I was kind of, like I say, introspective about the whole thing. And yeah, it made me look at, like, if you had told me a year ago that I would battle through cancer and that I would experience pain that I hadn't felt before and get through it, I wouldn't have thought I was that tough. I'm one of those people who's like, yeah, I guess I'm pretty durable, but I don't push myself to run marathons. I don't do any of that, and I'm not especially a fan of pain. But yeah, like after I made it through that, I was like, I can do a lot more than I thought I could. So that was nice. Cancer hadn't touched me that much as far as people close to me, so I had never really researched much about it. Like, you just know that cancer is a bad thing. But like I said, it's your own body, your own cells working against you, and they grow really rapidly. And so when they do like chemo and radiation, all that attacks rapid growth cells. So the other things that you happen to have that are rapid growth cells are like your hair, your fingernails, your taste buds. And so that's why when people go through all that stuff, hair falls out sometimes, or fingernails, or things like that. My beard, I was like in the shower one day and I washed my beard and I got out and I started drying it, and half my beard fell out in the towel. And I was just like, that was the saddest moment of all of it for me. And then they're like, yeah, it might not grow back. And then it does, and yeah, exactly. And although to this day, like, you can't really see because I shaved earlier, but like I have to shave here, but not here because the cancer was on this side, so everything was over here. So this is still baby smooth. But yeah, it's really freaky when your hair starts to come back because it's the first time you've got brand new hair since you were a baby. So it's like super soft and weird and kind of creepy because you have baby hair on you. It's weird. But Maureen, answer your question. So a little awkward to talk about, but I feel like it's something that needs to be talked about. That's the edge of the table right there. The type of cancer I got is oropharyngeal, and it's related to HPV, which human papillomavirus virus is in the air everywhere. Like, you can get it from everybody, and there are tons of different types of it. If you get a wart, that's HPV. There's all sorts, like, and all seriousnesses. That's a word. But so women can get cervical cancer by exposure to HPV. That's been around for like 20 years. Men getting oropharyngeal cancer through HPV is still a pretty new thing, and it's something that's not as well known about. There's some sort of link between oral sex and HPV leading to a cancer. And from what the doctors told me, I'm kind of like on the vanguard of this, like the cutting edge. I didn't necessarily want to be. It's not a cool thing to be like, yeah, leading edge. Cancer. But yeah, it's something that I feel like more people should know about and learn about, because when the thing I didn't mention is your exposure to HPV could be decades before the cancer. So like something you do when you're 18, 19 years old could lead to a cancer when you're 30, 40 years old. And nobody thinks about that. Nobody's that concerned about it. But it's worth looking into. At like up to 25, you can get a vaccine against HPV that is almost completely effective. And so why wouldn't you? There's no risk in getting the vaccine, no side effect or anything like that. But it could help prevent a cancer down the road, and you do not want to go through what I went through. They talk about it, how fun it is, but it's not.